Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see you in our Codebreak Club community. Today we are going to start our stream about architecture
Mobile
of
solution architecture. Yeah.
yeah. Our speaker Artem Bagritsevich. Artem, please go on.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. What is mobile solution architecture? Actually, we just had a brief chat with Andrei regarding this topic, and he said that usually solution architecture is something about clouds, uh, about like connection between microservices and so on. But uh, it is really interesting what mobile developers are thinking about solution architecture, and maybe it can be something different. And we will review like different cross-platform frameworks, different solutions available on the market and used by the customers, by the companies for mobile application development, and we'll review on solution architecture from the prospects of mobile engineer. My name is Artem Bagritsevich. I'm chief software engineer at EPAM. I'm expert in Android and Kotlin. It's my main area of expertise, but also I've been working as Unity developer a long time ago. Also have experience with Flutter and some other cross-platform frameworks. And I have solution architecture background and participate in pre-sales in Mobile Competency Center. And I know the market and what's going on the market of mobile applications and what our customers are looking for. And probably I'll be able to share some statistic and insights even. So before answering this question, like what is the best cross-platform framework, because we have to answer this question today, let's try to elaborate a bit about why do we need cross-platform frameworks. Actually, usually I'm just asking when I'm speaking offline, I'm asking the audience to share your opinion, so you can use the chat. Maybe we can reach then your thoughts about it. But from our perspective, of course, uh, not every company can spend a lot of money on create native applications in Swift and Kotlin, where everything is native with huge separate teams of native developers and so on. And in this case, cross-platform frameworks can play a very good role and can help such companies. Also, cross-platform frameworks could be really great for startups when you're just trying to make some fast prototype, and then maybe when you will get your millions, you will switch to native applications, or maybe you will be okay with cross-platform and like all capability that this framework is providing to you. Yeah, but let's try to answer this question. What is the best cross-platform framework? Actually, I have the answer at the beginning, and from my point of view, best framework is no framework, and actually in majority of cases companies are already having some uh, web application or something to use, maybe even mobile optimized website, or maybe they have web developers who are ready to create web application. And actually it is harder to find native engineers than like JavaScript engineers, for example, and that's why in majority of cases you can review progressive web applications approach when you're just taking your application, your existing web application, and just transforming it into the like mobile application, which can be installed, which looks like mobile application, but it is still running in the browser, and you're still dependent on the browser. And like drawbacks of such approach is, for example, that you don't have additional capabilities like of your like operation system. You can use only those capabilities which are supported by the browser. You hardly depend on a service worker, for example, and there are some limitations. For example, size of files you can store, and like amount of information you can store offline. Also, yeah, so sometimes you will need push notifications, and if your application requires push notifications, especially on iOS, it will not be possible to implement with progressive web applications. But fortunately, Apple announced recently that they're going to work in this way, and probably they will allow us to use push notifications in the web, but we're still like not sure. Does it mean that we will have push notifications out of the box in progressive web applications? Yeah, some facts from the market. We have a lot of examples of companies which are using progressive web applications. For example, Starbucks, they had web app and just transformed it into the PWA, and they twice increased their daily active users and of course revenue. Pinterest also has gain in visitors, like 40% more time on Pinterest inside PWA application. And of course, the business got 44% increase in the ad revenue. Yeah, and same thing for Twitter, 65% increase in pagers per session, increase in tweets sent, and of course, it's revenue depends on it. So this slide also answers such question like, why do we actually need mobile application when we have just mobile optimized website, for example? Just because in some cases you can significantly increase your active users, your revenue, and so on. Okay, let's go next. And for those who are interested in this technology, I recommend this 14 pager, just 14 pages PDF from Ionic team. They're briefly explaining what is progressive web applications. You will get more insight in this book, so feel free to scan this QR code, and then we can go next. By the way, you can just visit Ionic's site and find this guide to progressive web applications. Okay, another Ionic project called Capacitor. Probably you could hear about Cordova and PhoneGap project. And actually, I have experience working with this framework. I mean, Cordova, it was a long time ago, like 10 years, and devices were not so fast, and this framework I didn't like my experience working with this framework, actually, because application was laggy, not so smooth as native apps. So we decided to get rid of Cordova in our company, and then probably we switched to native approach. Yeah, but nowadays mobile devices are so powerful, they can render everything so fast. That's why we can probably such frameworks can have a new life. And Capacitor is like a replacement for Cordova framework, was developed also by Ionic team. And in this case, we have more capabilities because it's native runtime. What does it mean, native runtime? It means that you still have web application which is running inside the web view, but this web view is actually not a browser but web view of the native application. And we have a lot of native bridges between this website and native application. That's why you can utilize all the capabilities of native of platform via this bridge. And also you can create custom bridges if you need some like other APIs not supported by the Capacitor framework out of the box. And that is really cool, actually, because now you don't have any limitations in like size, because you can use, for example, a native database on native side, but at the same time you can implement all your UI in web still. Maybe you can reuse your existing UI, and it is really great. If you want to go deeper in such framework as Capacitor. Oh no! First of all, let's review capacitor based apps. Not so much on the market, but on their official website, I found Burger King, Tim Hortons, and Popeyes. All these three companies are fast food, and Sworkit is fitness app, so it's ridiculous for me actually. But we have what we have. Yeah, and of course it's product of Ionic, so you can visit Ionic's website and find this 16-pager about building cross-platform application with Capacitor. Actually, I know that even some of our customers using this framework, so now it's like more and more popular in the market, and I know that sometimes we have such requests. And also, if you're still not sure what is the difference between hybrid, native, and so on, I recommend this also by Ionic 24 pages PDF document about difference between hybrid and native, and you can also find it on the Ionic's website. Okay, next we seen holy grail of cross-platform frameworks. It's React Native, very popular with huge fan base, with unlimited amount of different plugins, libraries, and so on. And if your developers know React framework, they can quite easily switch to React Native, because here we have pretty the same approach. Of course, they will need to learn this new text like view, header text, and so on. And under the hood, it will be transformed into real native UI. So in case if Capacitor was native runtime, we still had web view and like UI based on web run inside it. In case of React Native, we have really native UI, which is generated based on this like configuration from React Native side. It is really powerful, and of course, huge amount of companies using this framework, from very famous companies, huge amount of apps on the market. And I can say that we have a lot of requests from the customers regarding React Native capabilities, so they have interest. But what to do if you, for example, have not React Native team, but Angular or Vue.js developers? Then you can try native script. Actually, it works pretty the same way, but there are some limitations. For example, it works in a single thread. So if you're processing huge amounts of data in your application, your UI can stack a little bit. So you can think about it before choosing this framework. But anyway, it is good option when you want to go with Angular or Vue.js, for example, instead of React Native. But in case if you have React Native engineers or React engineers, I would recommend going with React anyway. So, of course, this framework less popular than React Native, and I don't even remember that I saw such apps. But from the internet, I found only these companies which are using native script. Their logos are black for some reason. Yeah, also fun fact. Okay, let's go next. And usually I'm asking, do we have some Dart engineers in the audience, and Dart engineers who are writing actually web applications, web UI? Because it's really interesting. I know a couple of guys who are doing it, and they switched from .NET to Dart just because of their company like request. But it's not it's quite a rare case actually. But if you know Dart, for example, then Flutter is really a good option. And also Flutter is a great option because it supports not only mobile platforms, but also iOS, macOS, Linux, Windows, desktop development actually, and web development. And you can create like a lot of different applications out of the box using just one framework. And isn't it cool? Yeah. Of course, you could say that we can try to utilize Electron somehow, combine it with like React Native. I don't know, but here you receiving everything out of the box. And I know for sure that at EPAM we had a project where application was developed for 9 different operation systems. It was a project related to TVs. And all these TVs were covered by Flutter, and it's incredible. For me, it's really surprising. I was shocked when I used to know it. Okay, of course, Flutter is very powerful framework developed by Google. A lot of huge companies using it, and I would say that interest from the customer side between React Native and Flutter is similar. So like 50-50 between React Native and Flutter. At the same time, I would say that like it's 50-50 between native and cross-platform still. Okay, also we have such framework as Xamarin, and I would say that only in some cases it will be good. Usually when we see that our customers are all about Azure Cloud, all about .NET, and they have huge pools of people and maybe people on bench with C# and .NET. And in this case, Flutter could be, not Flutter, sorry, Xamarin could be a great option. And I see that Microsoft tries to like implement some fresh features like to support this framework, but we have we have not so much requests related to Xamarin, and this technology is kind of dying, let's say. But anyway, sometimes we have such requests. Of course, it's not a news for us that Microsoft is using Xamarin, because their developers, also some BBC Good Food, for example, yeah. And also, I forgot to mention that Xamarin also works on smartwatches, on desktops, and it is also could be advantage of the framework. What else? We can also review Unity. You could say that Unity is not a mobile and not a cross-platform framework. It's a game development engine, and you'll be right. And I definitely not recommend you creating UIs with Unity, creating some applications with Unity, but sometimes you have some interesting cases when you have to create some mini game inside of your application, or maybe some tutorial, and you want some fancy stuff here. And in this case, Unity could be a really great option, because Unity can be embedded into your existing application, into Flutter application, into native application. So you're just taking Unity stand, you're just embedding it into your application, and you have your like game experience inside, and you can play with 3D and all this stuff, and Unity can really extend your capabilities. But by the way, we used to embed also Flutter games, Flutter-based games on one of the projects at EPAM, and we implemented a Flutter-based game using Flame engine of Flutter, and then we embedded it into a native Android application, and everything was running really cool. And talking about difference between all these frameworks, for one of the conferences we prepared 3 absolutely similar Android applications, one in Flutter, one in ReactNative, and one in native. Of course, we asked our developers to have absolutely the same UI, and visitors of the conference were not able to recognize where the Flutter, where this their like native application, because these frameworks are working like pretty the same, close to native, let's say, especially in cases of simple logic. And for example, Flutter works so fast just because it uses rendering. For Flutter, everything is canvas, and Flutter just draws on canvas, and that's why sometimes Flutter applications working even faster than native. But for the end user, you will not see this difference, because this difference in milliseconds, let's say. Okay, what else? What other options do we have? Of course, we can go with the native approach, but in this case, we need 2 separate teams, iOS and Android team. We need probably more quality assurance engineers, and so on. But in this case, you will have best-in-class smooth UI. You will be able to use all capabilities of your like mobile device, and of course, like you can do anything. Yeah, Qt, I just added it here as one of the options, but it is not so popular nowadays, and I wouldn't recommend even using it for mobile development. I think it will be painful for you, like unless you have some strict like requirements to use this framework. Also, you can find V8 here is just from one of past projects I worked on. We had V8 Chromium engine running on the Android in NDK, and we had all business logic written in JavaScript and shared between the iOS and Android application. It is also an option, but this app was so huge, so like hard to understand. So like probably for junior engineers, it would be impossible to understand what's going on here. Why JavaScript business logic lays inside Android application? Why do we have all this C++ code inside? So nowadays, I would recommend going with Kotlin multi-platform. In case if you want to share some business logic between native applications, between Kotlin Android application and, for example, Swift iOS application, it works quite well. I think we will have more requests soon. Also, recently on Kotlin conference, Compose, it is special cross-platform UI framework, was announced for iOS. So probably it will be possible to create both Android and iOS application with shareable code base and with UI implemented in Compose in pure Kotlin. It is interesting approach, and let's wait for stable releases of this framework. and just to play. And also we have some other options like this sign on the right. It is Flutter Flow. It is low code, no code platform, and sometimes it can give you some competitive advantage. For example, if you want to create something very fast, for example, like pre-sale demo, uh, just to showcase something to the customer, and there are more and more cross low code, no code platforms related to mobile appearing on the market. It's just one of many of them. And like at the end of this talk, I would say that there are really lots of different frameworks available on the market, but what you should understand is you should analyze capabilities that you need. You should analyze real requirements, functional and non-functional, and depending on these requirements, trying to understand which framework works the best way for you. Because sometimes you could have a team of web developers and some web-based framework would be better. Sometimes you have a huge team of Kotlin developers, and maybe you can go with Kotlin multi-platform shareable code base. Maybe even Kotlin developers can write some backend using Ktor framework or Spring, and when you're thinking about your application architecture, thinking about resources, you will get more benefits. Okay, and it's time for questions and answers. So, Andrei?
Yeah, I'm here, and we have questions. And please ask question in our chat on YouTube. Let's start. Who will be first? We have a comment that the best code is no code, no bugs. It was at the start of your presentation.
Yeah, I agree.
We have a question. What is some emergent trends or technologies in mobile solution architecture that businesses should be aware of? So
yeah, I
like
understand this
not
question.
okay.
Yeah, I think that from my perspective, businesses should have Flutter discipline for sure, because Flutter is more and more popular nowadays, and I see the trend that we have more Flutter requests on the market. Also, Kotlin multi-platform, of course, because this technology can win the market some days. I hope.
We have a question in our chat on via community platform. Which of them is most demanded in your opinion? I think it's related to technologies you discussed.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, more demanded. I would say it's ReactNative, Flutter, probably native, of course, native. I already mentioned on the session that native versus cross-platform is like 50-50, and Flutter and ReactNative are also 50-50 between them. So they're really demanding right now. And as for the Kotlin multi-platform, I would say that nowadays we have only limited like I can count it on one hand.
okay, and we have question in our Q&A section on via community. It's what is your opinion on the pros and cons of Kotlin multi-platform for mobile development in the context of other solutions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said previously, I think that Kotlin multi-platform is a great technology because we can share common business logic between different platforms, like between web, between iOS and Android, and I think that even desktop. I see that JetBrains are like trying to introduce new things like Compose, which I mentioned for iOS, and all these ecosystems should grow in the future. I expect it to grow. So, from my opinion, Kotlin multi-platform will have more visibility on the market soon. Not so soon, but maybe in a year or a couple of years, when everything will be stable. But even nowadays, we have definitely more requests than like a year ago, let's say. From the perspective of usability, yeah, your developers should understand how to name like variables, just to avoid situation when you used some iOS specific, Swift specific keyword in your Kotlin code, and all your like iOS project will not compile in this case, and such things should be learned. But after you get in some experience working with this framework, everything should run quite smooth. Actually, you should follow quite a simple rule that you should move only pure business logic into the like cases for now. But in the future, in theory, we can share everything, and Kotlin multi-platform could become like cross-platform framework, let's say, something like.
Okay, thank you. We have next one question. Any significant disadvantages of progressive web apps in compare of native applications?
Yeah, probably I mentioned everything on this session. For me, the most significant disadvantage is push notifications, because like majority of modern applications are using it, and if you're not able to use it on iOS, you're not so like good app, you're limited in functionality. Also, UI will not be so responsive. Like native application will work faster anyway, regardless of framework. And also, on native, in the native approach, you can implement two different UIs on Android and on iOS. But in case of PWA, you will have one web-based UI. But why is it so important? Just because of components. I mean UI components, because Android users usually using Android apps, and inside Android apps they are seeing some like base standard components, and they expect to see these components in other apps. But then they're opening UPWA, and they're seeing something web-based, which is not looking like the same way as their standard UI component from Android or iOS. And it is also one of the drawbacks. Like we can tell it about all cross-platform frameworks. They are trying to make some hacks. For example, Flutter have like material components and Cupertino components, like two different sets. But anyway, it is like they're just trying to make these components look like native one, but it is not the same. Let's say.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the next question. Next question. Is it worth converting React Native application to Flutter to improve performance? Did you face such business requests or scenarios in your career?
No, I didn't. And actually, I think that I cannot imagine, like as I said previously, React Native works quite fast because it is not web based. It is actually compiled into native views, and it is quite well performant. So I don't see the reason why we should convert React Native application into Flutter. Maybe in some cases Now, like we all know the stories of huge businesses who got rid of React Native in favor of native approach or in favor of some other framework, but it is only about huge super apps. I would say that if your application is or like of size of some Instagram or like it, I would go with native probably.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Next question from backend developer: why Flutter over performs native applications in work? It works directly with low-level devices API or what?
Yeah, actually, as I said previously, Flutter for Flutter everything is canvas. So you can imagine that you have just white screen and Flutter draws on it. And for drawing, Flutter uses native APIs. Like it is like a lot of C++ code and so on. That's why it draws really fast.
Probably Flutter can use graphic accelerator for rendering.
Yep, I'm not a Flutter expert, so it would be great to invite Sasha Denisov to this talk. But maybe he'll join Codebur later.
Okay, next question. What do you think about Flutter on web?
Flutter on web. Currently, we're working on one like POC project where Flutter is our main technology, and we started our project from the web part. So probably in few weeks, I will be able to have some understanding and answer your question. But for now, I would say that Flutter is ready for web, and we're not afraid of using it there.
Is it still use canvas for rendering on web?
Probably yes, it should.
Sounds interesting. So let's go to the next question. What mobile technologies would you suggest to work on for software developers having experience with JS and React Native?
React Native. Like why? Why I should recommend something else? React Native is the best way of like if you have React experience, like React Native is the easiest way to go to the mobile development. But anyway, sometimes you will need to learn something new from native mobile.
Okay, thank you. Next question. It's about external packages. Regarding the usage and the quality of external packages for React Native and Flutter, which is the better?
Well, actually, I don't know which is the better, but I know that both React Native and Flutter they have huge like fan base, huge community, and a lot of packages available on the market. So I think quality would be pretty the same.
Probably you can recommend any uh, uh, top list of packages you use for Flutter or for React Native or for both.
Okay, for React Native, I cannot recommend because I didn't use. For Flutter, I used Flame Engine, which I mentioned for development of game experience. It's really interesting, but I think I have to be Flutter developer to recommend something from like my production. Yeah, but I'm not actually Flutter developer. I just tried Flutter on some POC projects, pet projects. I know the capabilities, but I don't know like exact packages, exact like and unfortunately I cannot compare like some package from React Native and from Flutter.
Okay, okay, thank you. Let's move to the next question. Is Is there a difference in power consumption between Flutter, React Native, and native mobile solutions?
Well, it is actually a great question. Um, I don't know the numbers, but probably we should do some comparison. Yeah, let me think. We can try to use some profilers, but let's try to think about it. Uh, this is just applications. Like it will depend on mostly on your application and what your application is doing. Like modern Android, I mean, operation system will like put your application to some bucket, put your application or system to the DOS mode, will limit everything, and like there is no sense for operation system what framework lays behind your application. It will try to save as much energy as possible, as we can see. So probably if applications are the same, they should have pretty the same power consumption comparing Flutter, React Native, and Native.
Probably next time we will have something like tests and show results.
Yeah, it would be great.
By the way,
I'll talk to R&D. Yeah.
is it possible to test it in some engineering way? Probably some frameworks how to test power usage.
Yeah, we can actually use, even in Android Studio IDE, we have Profiler, special tool for monitoring like power, CPU usage, memory, and so on. So we can actually just run some application and track it, checking how
Okay,
much energy it uses.
okay, thank you. Can be Angular, and next question, can be Angular useful in mobile applications? Angular,
Yes, it can be useful. I mentioned native script. So if Angular is your choice, try it.
by the way, you can use it in progressive web apps. You can
Yeah,
use it.
sure.
Okay, thank you. Uh, uh, we have remarked that your argument against progressive sounds like you are evangelizing MAUI.
Sorry, was it a question?
It's just remark. It's not a question. Uh,
Okay.
so next question: when it's not recommended to use cross-platform technologies?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say that it should be based on some functional requirements. For example, let's imagine that we are writing application which should work hardly with some sensors, with some like low-level devices, with some strange APIs, which will require from you work a lot of on the low level, on the native level. It means that when you will select something like React Native or Flutter, you will have to create a lot of bridges and work anyway on the native layer. And it means that you are losing your benefits of Flutter or React Native or some other cross-platform framework, because anyway you will need to write a lot of like integration code. I had one project actually when we decided to go with native instead of cross-platform, even after like signing of contracts and so on. I cannot disclose it, of course, but we had case when we had a lot of different devices, a lot of different SDKs, existing SDKs, and all these SDKs were related to native to platform, and all these integrations had to be done on the native side. And in this way, we didn't have like advantage in using cross-platform framework, because anyway we're writing everything on the native side.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And
Yeah,
probably
and also another thing, yeah, I just remembered, if you want to have like all native capabilities, native UI, pixel perfect UI, like if your like customers or stakeholders want from you like exactly the same native UI, it is the case.
okay. Probably last one question. What about Blazor progressive web app?
Uh, Blazor
Blazor.
progressive web app. Yeah, I didn't try, so I cannot like comment. So I don't have experience with it.
Okay, I think that's it for today. We have a lot of questions. We have a lot of listeners. Please don't forget to follow us on YouTube or and on Telegram. Artem, thank you very much for your topic and for your talk. Have a good day for everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.